I'm Frances Liu. I lead our marketing team here at InstaWork. And for those who aren't familiar with InstaWork, we're a flexible staffing app with a focus on the hospitality industry. We work with thousands of catering and event professionals like yourself. And the reason why we're hosting this roundtable today is that we've heard from many of you that there's interest in connecting with others in the community. And so we started last week with a roundtable featuring Greg Casella, Lisa, and Joseph, just to share some of their learnings from previous recessions. And we're continuing on with Bill Hansen, Andrew Gerstel, and Lilian to talk a little bit more about, how do we build non-traditional revenue streams during this time period while we're waiting for the business to really come in and pick back up. So appreciate you all joining. I know there's a lot of questions that you probably want to get answered, in addition to just to more generally learn about their approach and the things that they're doing, with their business. And so, the topics that we're going to cover today will be, broad, but to start off, we'll be asking them how they're assessing what works for their business, certain operational and marketing considerations that they're thinking through, and how they're building a plan that lasts. We also really want and encourage you to ask questions along the way. We'll pause throughout these conversations so that you can chime in, because this is very much about helping you think through what all the different questions and kind of what you guys are all talking about and sort of struggling with right now. So before we start, I think I wanted to go over a few housekeeping rules. So one, we muted everybody just so that we can just make sure that there isn't any distractions from ambient distractions. But please, you're welcome to unmute yourself to ask questions. I ask that you go back and mute yourself after you're done. There's ways, if you're not quite sure, there's ways to just chat if you prefer to sort of chat in your questions, or you can raise your hand so that we know we can try to call on you. That way we can, we'll keep an eye on it and be able to ask on your behalf. We also want this to be in constructive conversations. So while we want to we want your questions and input, we also want to make sure that it's on topic, not political, not disparaging. I think we're all kind of working through this together. And then this call will be recorded and notes will be shared probably ideally by end of week, if not in a few days. So expect an email to come. So with that, I did see that Andy joined again. Andy, are you able to connect better this time around? I can't hear you if you're talking. So I will continue, but please chime in again if you can. So I think the first person I'll quickly intro, and maybe I did put you guys on the spot. Andrew, maybe if you want to just quickly introduce yourself. We'll introduce the different panelists, and then we will then start with the different questions. So Andrew, take it away.
Sure, yeah. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name's Andrew Gerstel. I'm CEO for Windows Catering, Washington, D.C. based. And we've been in business since 1987, supporting the metropolitan D.C. area, working with a lot of Fortune 100 clients, Smithsonian properties, government agencies, State Department, historic homes, museums, full service event planning, as well as corporate drop-off catering as well. Frances, did you want me to start talking a little bit about sort of where we are today, or did you want to do some intros to the other panelists too?
Let's intro the other panelists, and then we'll circle back on what you're working on today. Thank you.
Yep.
Bill, how about you?
Yes, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Hansen. For 40 years, I've owned Bill Hansen Catering and Events. I also have a venue in Miami called Villa Woodbine. I do 50% weddings, 50% corporate, and recently we've delved into the drop-off market with great success. So that's really what I have to say at this point.
Thanks, Bill. And then Lillian?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm Lilian. I am the owner of Lilian's Table, a very recent venture for myself. Launched it in July and have been operating in South Florida, mainly in Broward County, Cooper City, Davie Plantation, and I also do have some presence already in Miami. And basically, we are a meal prep, so we delivered food that has already been cooked and ready to heat up and serve. Have a lot of mothers and women clients that we've been servicing, and up to about 80 customers more or less at this point.
Great. Thank you for the intro. With that, I actually will stop sharing my screen just so that you could see all of their lovely faces and turn it over to Andy to kick off with the questions. Oops.
Wonderful. Thanks, Francis. And I apologize to everybody that I'm not on video. Part of the complexities of working from home is having sometimes some of these internet challenges, but very excited to be able to kick this off. So Andrew, Bill, and Lilian, I would love for each of you to share with us a little bit about your business and what you're doing to pivot throughout these times and to find additional revenue streams as we go forward with all of this COVID-19 issues. So I'd love to hear from each of the panelists in terms of what is it that you guys have been doing different from the past. And Andrew, let's kick it off with you, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely. Great. I'm happy to share experiences, and sort of this is uncharted territories that we're navigating, regardless of the stage of your business, whether in a more of a startup phase or somebody like Bill or myself, where our organizations are 30 plus years old. So our mix of sales is currently or prior to the COVID-19 outbreak or pandemic, our mix of sales was 80% of the full service catering, and then 20% for our really corporate drop off. 95% of that of the drop off business that we do is geared towards the corporate clients. I'd even say 98%. A lot of our in-home social has typically been full service events. So for us, it wasn't necessarily a matter of a new revenue stream. It was more of a pivot, I guess, if you will, in terms of how we approached the in-home delivery market. Over the years, we've done a number of programs with retailers and for grab and go and box meals. And so we feel like we had a great position of strength or foundation to work from in terms of our product offerings. Now, with that being said, we did have to do some modifications to our existing programs. We currently have the fleet of vehicles. We have 17 vans that all day long are all over the Washington D.C. metropolitan area delivering. They're all refrigerated vehicles. We have Cambros that we transport warm food in. So the infrastructure was in place. Our culinary operations were accustomed to the menus. But what we've done essentially is sort of modified our menu so that our product offerings are not as diverse and is not as robust. Our corporate brochure, which can be found on catering.com, has over 150 items. We've pared that down to about, I would say, 30 items, 40 items, and we'll rotate that weekly. And essentially, we've pushed out to our social clients and our corporate clients that still have employees in their offices, a modified menu and reaching deep into the community and working with personal relationships and using a referral network to sort of drive opportunity for us. Some of the challenges that we've seen in terms of how we've modified and done this pivot relate to things like portion sizes, how we package our items, how we price our items also definitely has changed. Individual servings versus, with having minimums of 8 or 10 people, we've sort of sort of done things in more bulk and using either half pans or full pan sort of pricing models. So we've sort of modified how we've approached the pricing structure as well. We're no different than any other food service operation in the country, where we're working with a really skeleton crew. And salaried employees, all of our hourlies have been furloughed in sort of an on-call basis. So we're being very careful about how we're calling in our on-call staff, our hourly staff. And really, one of the surprising things that we found is that my salary team members, which are my executive chef, a couple sous chefs, my executive pastry chef, they didn't have the knowledge base of all the recipes because of our large culinary operations. At this time of year, we would normally have about 60 to 80 people in our kitchen. And so we got exposed a little bit with some cross-training on recipes. So we've had to retrench a little bit and sort of call some people back in and say, hey, teach us some of these recipes that we taught you years ago. So that's been an interesting process to go through. We've been very careful about purchasing, working off a current inventory, but also when we do have to do any purchasing, quality control measures are very important. A lot of our purveyors in the metropolitan DC area, they have products sitting in the warehouse that may be a week to 2 weeks old. So making sure that quality control issues through your supply chain is critical as well. My sales team currently, we normally operate with a sales team of about 22 or 23. We're down to about 13, 14 commissioned salespeople. So motivating them has been a real challenge. We huddle daily and sort of lean on each other for motivation. As leaders of organizations, I think finding ways to motivate is critical in these times. I choose to motivate looking towards the positive and focusing on what a positive outcome looks like at the back end of this COVID-19 pandemic, as opposed to motivating from a position of fear, the fear of failure, or the fear of being rejected by a customer if you're reaching out to them. So it's sensitive times when it comes to reaching out to our clients. We've been sort of slapped on the wrist by a couple clients trying to reach out to them, but also encouraged by some of the responses that we've gotten from them as well. We're donating 10% back to food banks. We're getting involved in the community as well, wherever we can. I do have a couple social and corporate clients who are looking to make fairly substantial donations to charitable organizations for the food insecure. So I'm currently working with organizations locally to launch large-scale programs where I've got a client who's looking to land $100,000 in charitable donation. So sort of reaching deep into your relationships, finding any way possible to generate revenue streams. And people are very receptive to when it comes to sort of charity work, we've found. And that's not going away. I think that's going to continue for several weeks, unfortunately, maybe several months. We have a referral program as well. We give gift cards out, gas cards, or Amazon gift cards, or Starbucks cards for anybody who refers a piece of business. And that's been a big success for us over the years when it comes to our in-home delivery or corporate drop-off. So I guess I'll pause there and I turn it over to one of my fellow panelists. I'm happy to answer more questions as we get further into the conversation.
Would you like me to go next, Andy?
Yes, Bill, I think it'll be interesting. So from what we heard from Andrew, he had to make a few changes to his operation, paring down offering, changing portion sizes, pricing. What have you been doing? Because I know you've been doing some interesting changes to your business model throughout all of this.
Yes, we have, Andy. It's been, in my 74 years on this earth, I have not been through anything like this. It's certainly been a new challenge, but we look at it as a great opportunity to come out of this better at the other end. So like Andrew, we do have an existing delivery business. Last August, I bought a smaller catering company called Lovables, so that got us into the daily deliveries. Up to that point, we did not do daily deliveries. We were totally focused on higher end weddings and corporate events. So that with the Lovables brand now, we're poised to really expand on the delivery market. We also have developed some very low cost meals, which we can provide to charitable operations. Broward Sheriff's, for example, has placed an order for next week. And basically, we're selling these items, these food items at cost plus a little bit for labor and a little bit for delivery. And the price point on these is between $5 and $8 per meal. And we're doing that, A, to help everyone else, and B, to allow opportunities for all of my cooks who have been laid off to come back and do some work. Currently, the biggest cutback we've made is in our staff. We were at 40 full-time team members, and we're now down to less than 20. The way I'm structured right now is like Andrew. I had a larger sales team. We've cut down to 5. And they are all working at half pay. We've converted those that were hourly, or not hourly, but who are on salary, and through the payroll, we put them on as independent contractors, which is totally legal, and it saves them some money in taxes. And of course, they'll have to pay it at the end of the year. Plus, it'll save my company money there. We have 2 salaried chefs that are still on, and they're doing all the cooking. I have a couple people in operations, and we basically pared our payroll down by about 75%. Obviously, I hate to do that, but it's important because we want to come out of this better off than many companies who aren't able to make these changes. Cash is king from my perspective as a business owner. And so we're doing everything possible to extend out our payables, not with communication. We're using Amex to charge certain things that we normally wouldn't charge on. I would encourage everybody here to reach out to their credit card companies and find out what terms they will offer. For example, Amex they're actually giving me a whole free month. My payment would have been due, I think it was April 17th. Now it's due May 17th, with no interest, no penalties, no anything. We're looking at the delivery business as something that will sustain us, but where I'm really focusing with my sales team is building a bridge to the future. There are so many people in South Florida that have jumped into deliveries, like Lilian and so many others. And we are going to do it, but we're really putting our focus on the future. We call this program A Bridge to the Future, and my event team members are reaching out to all of the leads that we have for weddings, for example. And we have like 400 leads in our system right now. And we're reaching out and saying, due to the coronavirus, we're offering you deep discounts if you're willing to book now. And believe it or not, that's beginning to work. We have closed 1 wedding every day this week, which is no worse than where we were without the coronavirus. So we're working on that. I'm having my sales team write blogs for our websites. They're reaching out through LinkedIn to establish new relationships with vendors and venues and planners. And we're really, like Andrew, we're having a morning rally. We all get together at 9 o'clock, go over what was good, what was not so good. Currently, we're dealing with a couple of requests for refunds on deposits, which obviously the way our contract is, deposits are not refundable, but of course, I'm going to consult with my attorney on that and do what's honorable and what's right. So bottom line is we're looking to the future and building a bridge to so that when things turn around, we're going to be positioned to take advantage of the opportunities that avail themselves to us.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bill, for your perspective. I also would love to hear from Lilian. Lilian, I think you're in a little bit of a different boat in that your business was focused from the get-go on meal delivery systems, but I understand you've also had to make quite a few changes to your operation to try and be competitive and successful throughout all of this. So can you share a little bit of which strategies you're using and how have you had to pivot during this time?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Andy. And it's actually quite an honor to be in the company of Bill and Andrew with such, so many years of excellent, experience and work that you do in your industries. And so I don't have that. I was learning along the way when everything happened and really thinking as well about, as you mentioned, Bill, sort of the future and where kind of the food, delivery is headed when all of this occurred. My business model is a little bit more, it does lend itself. I think people are still trusting and still relying somewhat on delivery and getting food other than being, let's say, in the kitchen 24/7, which now all of us kind of tend to be with kids home from college and kids home from school. It seems that that's all that we do. So we were already speaking a little bit to that crowd. The adjustments that we've had to make is that, I think, Bill, you touched on it a little bit on low cost options. So our existing menu is very Mediterranean inspired. It is healthy, portion control. Doesn't brand itself as any kind of a diet, just healthy, good tasting lifestyle type of eating. And so what we've done a little bit is introduced, for example, family. We just launched just yesterday, family portion meals. So now you may not be getting it just for yourself to take your work because you're not really going to work, and you really are concerned about the whole family. So some of the customer favorites we're offering now in sizes of, three persons or 3 servings and 5 servings, of course, at a slightly reduced cost. And testing that, we just, again, rolled it out. I think the beauty also of being very small in a startup environment is that we can kind of go into our, online system of ordering and make changes very quickly to get product and different offerings out there. And so we've adjusted it that way. We're also considering our kitchen where we cook out of. We're in a commercial shared kitchen, and they're promoting and getting together with the City of Sunrise and the different chambers of commerce to offer a curbside pickup. And so perhaps some customers nowadays, with all the concerns with this pandemic, are weighing, is it better and safer to have delivery or to have a pickup and to just do takeout? And so we're going to play around as well with, does that make sense? And just put a little bit of perhaps, a few dollars out there in some zip codes close to the kitchen to see if people would be more interested in a curbside pickup. Of course, we have elevated, food safety practices, are, highlighting the disinfecting of all of our, insulated bags and our ice, and also considering going and doing away with those and just delivering in a bag and saying, you have to be home. Now people are home, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So a lot of those things that we're thinking about, we've launched some kid-friendly options as well, low budget, even though, again, parents are home, but it is 3 meals that you have to give these kids, and sometimes even 4 or 5. So anything that we can do to help keep the kids healthy as well, so that you're not just snacking all day long on, empty kind of calories and chips and what have you. That's a little bit of what we've had to do. In terms of staff, I have a staff of 2. It's a small operation and it's not daily. We're in the kitchen only about 4 days a week. And so just having kind of like that huddle at the beginning of each shift, checking to see how everybody's feeling, making it, very just verbalizing any concerns. And if you're not comfortable coming to work, then by all means, stay home. Most of everybody that's with me is really only going home and coming to the kitchen when they need to. So just being a little bit more vigilant about their situation and their concerns. That's where we are.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lilian. So we've gotten lots of questions from everybody in the audience. I'm going to try and do my best to summarize a few of them and sort of group them into themes. Some of the most frequent questions we're getting are around marketing and how are you understanding your new customer needs as they shift? So what types of tools are you using to understand your shifting customer needs? And then also, how are you differentiating yourself from the competition as everybody now is trying to vie for options around meal delivery?
I can take a stab at answering that, Andy. So for us, we're in constant contact with social, corporate, across the board, our clients, asking them what they're looking for our corporate needs, because DC's on lockdown as well, and everybody's teleworking. We actually found a need for executive teams who are holding meetings, virtual meetings, just like we are today through Zoom, and we've actually made 4 or 5 deliveries this week of box meals to all attendees with that are for these meetings. So it's a little bit logistically challenging when you've got, I think today we delivered to like 20 different private homes of individuals who are going to be dialing in for Zoom, and it was basically a lunch meeting that was being held virtually. So getting creative with our customers, I think, is important. And so we're going to sort of fine tune some of our messaging as our clients give us feedback. In-home meals, with kids and different, dietary restrictions to feed. We're making adjustments based on feedback we're getting in from our in-home social clients. Snacking, I think Lily talked about snacking. We're trying to create more health-conscious snack items, bite-size, more hors d'oeuvres type of things that have been good sellers for us as well. Updating menus weekly, I think, is critical. I love Bill's approach to teasing the future. It's like, what is it going to look like when we get back online, and how we can sort of focus on what recovery looks like. And I think just staying fresh in front of your clients and not stopping with social media and being sensitive to what you're posting, but also sort of continue as business as usual, if you will.
I can comment a little bit. First of all, the one thing that we decided to do is we do not want to get into a price war with lesser price caterers. So basically, we are discounting prices some, but we under no circumstances are going to try to compete with the low price choices. There's one caterer here that does meals for a family meal for 5, and I think that was $59.95. Our meal for 5 we started off at 100 for 5, but we have dropped it down to 80. But that's about as far as I'm going to go on that, because the people that I found that are ordering from me are ordering from me because they know who we are. And they know what our food is like, and they're willing to pay a premium for it. But we did come up with a very amazing idea that one of my marketing people suggested, and it's somebody may want to try this, but it's what we call a micro wedding. So anyone that wants to get married, like right now in their home, within the next month or so, we're going to offer a free opportunity for them to participate in an online Zoom conference with other people tuning in and voting for which couple has the best idea and the best need for this free micro wedding. And so it would be for, say, 10 people, no more than 10, because we're not allowed to gather much more than that. And we pull out all the stops and bring it into their home and cater it for free with one server. That would be it. That would be, and they of course would be properly attired, et cetera, et cetera. But we're looking at it as a great promotional opportunity, more so than, booking micro weddings. And we're going to try to start that in the next couple of days. And if any of you want to follow me on Instagram or Facebook, or if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do so, and I'll keep you posted on that.
Wonderful. Oh, go ahead,
No,
Lilian.
Go ahead, Andy, just to chime in. I mean, we have just started launching some of our social media and marketing campaigns, and just, I would say, the last month. So it's still fairly new. My customer growth has come a lot from word of mouth, and I know most of my customers very well and on a personal level. And so getting a lot of data and just ideas on their behavior has been helpful. Our branding still continues to be the same. Like Bill mentioned, we've discussed and we've thought about really pivoting to a much lower price point all around, or should we play around in a different menu altogether? And we've decided to keep our message and keep our offering, but perhaps just introduce a couple of new items that could be more budget friendly. While we're kind of all in isolation and distancing, you can still eat well and have good portions, but it may not necessarily need to be our wild salmon cakes or Wagyu burgers or what have you. It could be a little bit pared down. So those items will still continue to be offered, but we are just introducing perhaps just a small line of additional items. And like I said, deciding on how to offer the family meals. I think it's important. We're just starting to test that. But trying to be sensitive as well on the brand and the promotions. There's so many ways that you could go with what's happening today, and it is unprecedented. So we're trying to not focus so much on the pandemic itself, but just maybe the current situation, as far as you're home all day, do you need a break from cooking? We know that we just have to balance it, right? Because everybody's worried about the economy. And if you're home, you probably should be cooking. And so we want to be careful and cognizant of our message that we're still here, we're cooking, we're open, doing it with a lot of love and a lot of care for when you need a break, but not trying to shove it in your face when we realize that if I were a customer, I also wouldn't be ordering on my meals right now from myself. So I think that's how we're kind of using some of the, marketing, to mitigate our situation.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I'm going to switch gears a little bit because we've had quite a few questions come in around how to either start a meal delivery service from scratch, or operationally how to transition a catering business into takeout or delivery. So I'd love to hear from the panelists. What did you find surprisingly tricky operationally? Or what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to transition into takeout or delivery for the first time?
Well, I can go ahead and answer that, because for years we considered getting into the delivery business. But when I thought about all of the logistics and knowing the traffic patterns in Miami and knowing the people on the loading docks and just knowing the ins and outs of how to do it, what I did, I decided I didn't want to get into that line of work, but I looked around for a company that was ready to merge, or a company that was ready to sell. So that's what I did. I was really not interested in expanding the delivery without having a partner that knew what they were doing. The company that I acquired had been in business 1986, and they knew their way around the city. So that's what I did anyway. So.
Sure, yeah, and it's that's a great question. We started our drop-off catering in 1992, and a lot of that was based on requests from our existing clients, our wedding clients, our corporate clients. And if we were to roll back the clock, I guess, and sort of assess how we started that decision-making process, it takes a number of areas to really look deeply into your business and to your existing team. But also it's a big financial commitment to switch from full service into a drop-off catering. First of all, the investment in vehicles is significant. We grew our fleet over time, but just purchasing or leasing vehicles that are refrigerated, that are able to run around the city all day, and that can be a significant investment. Menu development, recipe development, packaging, human resources, making sure you've got the culinary team to execute on the drop-off business. Also, transportation items like Cambros and bread racks and ways, carts and dollies. So there's a lot that goes into the logistics of the delivery as well. And it expands your product requirements as well. So making sure that you have a good understanding of your purchasing needs, not going too big with your menu. I mentioned earlier that we've got a corporate menu that's got about 150, 160 items in it. And we have to inventory all those items because, with a day's notice, we have to produce all of that. So there's considerations when it comes to storage facilities, when it comes to purchasing in bulk or in minimal quantities as needed. And then there's the marketing elements and how do you switch messaging. One of the things that we struggle with for many years, obviously, is a lot of our clients know us as drop-off caterers, and we are a high-end sort of more luxury brand, and they only use us for things like board meetings and special VIP client meetings, and they don't think of us for full service, and vice versa. A lot of our full service clients where we do 1,000-person seated gala, they don't think of us for the drop-off ordering. So, be careful how your brand is viewed by your clients, and also, how your salespeople how comfortable they are in selling both, or if you need to bifurcate your sales team and have a sales team member just focusing on corporate drop and then full service for everybody else. So, from a front of the house perspective, you really have to think through your messaging and your hiring strategy, your marketing plan, your social media plan. So there's a lot that goes into sort of making that transition.
That's a good point. If I could just add one more thing, that's what we did. So, because I was concerned about having my brand diluted by doing lesser expensive events. So I think it's important that if anybody wants to get into this delivery business, it's helpful if you can do it under a different brand, because the price points are considerably lower for a delivery type of product than they are for full service catering. So separating the brand is important. Yeah.
Lilian, do you have any advice operationally on how to set up meal delivery, since this is sort of what you've been doing since you guys started?
Yes, of course. And I think the question was probably more leaned towards me in the sense of starting it from scratch, right? And I did do that. I knew food from just my passion for cooking for many years, but I come from a 20+ year corporate environment working in finance. And so I knew nothing of kitchen operations, commercial kitchens. I cooked in my kitchen all day long, but had no idea about what a kitchen operation would look like. So part of what worked for me initially was I did do a lot of testing before kind of, rolling out with anything. very close community with like my gym and some of my, whether it's Orange Theory or some of the local gyms that I have a very close community over there. So I was bringing food and samples to the gym, to my trainers, to members. And I think people just began to associate me with food and delicious food. I think on a personal scale, people were already associating me with that. But as I started branching out a little bit to potential customers and trials, so I did a good period, I would say about 2 months, a little bit over 2 months of figuring out which recipes I was gonna use for my own sort of lifestyle and what I've been eating, which new ones I was gonna develop and testing those. And then I did a pilot. I interviewed customers. So another key point for running a business, I think any business, is really, really understanding the customer, the experience that you want to create for them. So I had 5 people that agreed to enter the pilot with me. I met with every one of them and interviewed their, nutritional needs, their family needs, why they considered, ordering food out and meal delivery and what have you. And then did like a 3-week pilot with those 5, but very quickly grew. Those 5 became 9, and they became 23 by week 3 and 42 by the end of that month. So it grew rather quickly, understanding what everybody wanted. But so proof of concept, really understanding the customer. And I would say so important is understanding your numbers. I mean, I'm a finance background. My husband, who partners with me on the business, is also a CFO. So we really understand where our numbers need to be, but obviously knew very little about food cost and the whole dynamics of a P&L for a food business. So that was been challenging, and we're certainly 8 or 9 months out. We're certainly not at the numbers necessarily yet for food costs that we want to be, but it's something that we are making progress and tracking. Every day. When you're small, you don't have the volume necessarily sometimes to order from the big suppliers. So really understanding your supply chain and how that works is equally important. And I would say the other aspect of it is just your brand, right? Really stay true to your brand. Try to stay in your own lane, because I think in the food world, there's so many different ways you could, hop over here and be distracted with this. For example, I get some requests from customers to do catering, and I've done a couple caterings, but they make me nervous, because at least in my business model, I go in, I make the food, it goes in the fridge, and the next day it goes out, it gets delivered. So I always have that sort of timeline that I measured everything checks off, paired everything with every order. With a catering job, when I go, it's a lot of pressure, right? I got to get the food, I got to get it to an event, somebody's having bar mitzvah brunch or something really special. And I feel like there's a lot riding on something that I could do wrong at this early stage. So I'm staying in my lane right now of, meal delivery. And anyhow, those are some of the learning experiences that I had starting it from scratch.
Yeah, it sounds like each of you have, in a way, decided what kind of lane you want to stick in, and then really make the most of that. We're getting some questions around logistics and how you manage all of these, and would love to hear your thoughts. But if I'm hearing you correctly, each of you has found a way for this to work for your brand and with the resources you have. So Lilian focusing more on delivery and family meals, Andrew going after some of the corporate clients, and Bill trying to maintain, your high-end brand and then a secondary brand. Are there any logistic issues that have been challenging for you, and how have you gotten around those?
That's a good question. I think I mentioned before, one is traffic and giving yourself plenty of time to get to where you're going. We have a refrigerated van that we deliver in, so that helps a lot. Obviously, the Cambro insulated containers are awesome, and they can keep hot food hot and cold food cold. And I think you can buy those for anybody considering it. I think you can get those either online or at Restaurant Depot at a great price.
Yeah, I think for us, it's at scale. You know, we average sometimes in our busy days, in a good time, between 40 and 70 deliveries a day. So
Wow.
for us, on a different scale, it's coordinating of our team members and routing. Traffic is as bad as anywhere in the country here in the DC market. So working with our clients and making sure we set realistic expectations on delivery windows. We try to give at least a 30-minute window, in some cases 45-minute window for our deliveries to occur. But also making sure on the other end that our clients are ready for us for our deliveries. If we've got 2 or 3 deliveries in a vehicle, or sometimes 4 or 5 deliveries in a vehicle, that our clients are ready for us. We have access to their loading docks. Security knows we're coming if it's a secure building. We have access to a conference room or a pantry where the food's going to be dropped off. We also do a full setup. We light chafing dishes and set out the whole buffet if necessary. So managing logistics from the loading dock all the way to final delivery and signing off on the paperwork is it's all in the detail, and making sure the timing is all coordinated.
Yeah, for us, I would say that we've, our logistical challenges that we've been battling around delivery as well. I mean, currently we do the delivery still. Like I said, we're still small. We deliver twice a week, and each of those routes is about, it could be anywhere from 12 to 20 deliveries, 20 being on just the high volume side. And for the most part, they're concentrated in an area. We split it up, so if there are areas that are a little bit further distance, one of us will go to those areas and the other person will stay in the more concentrated area within, let's say, a 20-25 mile radius of our kitchen. And we try to get around obviously the traffic situation. One of the deliveries is Sunday morning, starts at 7:30 a.m. So not a whole lot of traffic at that time. The other one is Wednesday early afternoon. Sometimes you run into some traffic patterns there. But some of the things that we were trying to do to make our deliveries more efficient was thinking about the one-to-many approach. So instead of growing, if I grow 20 customers, for me currently that's 20 households, right? 20 more stops. But really trying to partner with either some of my gyms, some of the nail salons, and leveraging on a lot of my corporate network to think about having either a kiosk or a drop-off where I can, go to one place and hit obviously many customers. That's what we had been starting to work towards. Obviously that's going to take a bit of a, let's say, a shift right now with, corporates not being even open for business at the present time. But I would say that deliveries, logistic is one of the things that we work with the most. And, just temperature control. We don't yet have refrigerated trucks. I'd love to rent one from one of you all, maybe Bill, since you're here. But I dream about.
Of course, we can team up. Don't worry. Call me afterwards.
Exactly. I dream about that truck a lot when I'm out on the road driving. So for me, temperature control is really important, making sure that I'm using the correct amount of ice, per meals, and really coordinating with my customers to make sure my customers will tell me. I mean, if somebody's not going to be home for the day, I'll know, and I won't drop off the food.
Mm-hmm. I can add something here. We have a celebrity online. We have Warren Dietel, who owns Puff and Stuff Catering up in Orlando and Tampa. And I noticed he was on, so I sent him a text. And he's saying, check your produce provider. Fresh Point, Central Florida gave us an entire truckload of produce that we are distributing to our team and to all of our clients ordering family meals. They gave us an entire truckload. So you might want to check with whomever you're buying your produce from. And then he's looking at it and kind of what we're doing. We have the same thing. We're looking at the home delivery business, not to make money, but just to simply keep our people busy. And he also says that we are donating one family meal to a displaced team member for every meal ordered. That's a great idea, Warren. We want the communities we serve to think about us when we return to producing events. So that's another way of building a bridge to the future.
Wonderful. Thank you all for your insights. I think we do have one more question in the chat, which is, with the advent of Uber Eats and Postmates and all of these delivery apps, how are you ensuring you get your customers' attentions and differentiate from these typical delivery apps?
I think if I may jump in on this one, because I've heard a lot of chatter recently, and now I'm sure like my panelists are as well, and a lot of Facebook groups. There's been a lot of temporary or just groups have started for this: who's delivering, who's open, who's doing curbside, and you hear a lot of the community speaking. And I think there's a little bit of mistrust out there right now going on with some of the the Uber and the Grub hubs. As far as just delays, as far as the fees, even though they're waiving, I think they're waiving delivery fees, I believe, for customers, but certainly not for the actual restaurant owner. And you just hear a lot of stories about how you ordered something like a breakfast, a person who's elderly and doesn't want to leave, order breakfast from a restaurant that's literally like she can see from her house, probably from her neighborhood, and it was like lunchtime before the breakfast item got to her. And so I think one of the key differentiators for us that my customers still appreciate and have said, we've canceled other services and other takeouts because we trust you and we're only using you. And I think there's that personal aspect to it, that personal touch that's working for us right now. It can't last for long because that's not scalable, but for the current, present time, it is working to our advantage as a differentiator from the big players.
To segue off of that, one of the mistakes that a lot of companies do as soon as business heads south, the first thing they do is cut back on their marketing and they cut back on their sales team. And we have intensified our marketing efforts and we generate all of our business for our drop-off and deliveries. It's all done through social media and LinkedIn and our mailing list. So we don't really rely on these other Grubhubs or Uber Eats or companies like that. And that's worked really, really well for us.
Yeah, I would agree with both Lily and Bill. For us, it's all about brand loyalty and brand trust. The folks that are still ordering from us are long-term customers or customers that have advocated for us and spread the word within their own communities. So our differentiation has really been about relationships. This is a relationship business. That's the bottom line. And people buy from people they trust and brands they trust. And that's where we're leaning heavily. And I agree with Bill. And now's not the time to retract and when it comes to marketing and sales efforts. My theme, Bill, is hashtag bigger, better, stronger. Your bridge to the future is great. And all of my sign-offs to my team members across everybody who's remaining who hasn't been furloughed is bigger, better, stronger. And how are we going to get there?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yep.
Well, on that positive note, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I do want to say and reiterate what you just mentioned, Andrew. This is a relationship business, and relationship and trust matters. So I do want to thank everybody who joined us today. We are always around for questions or support. We're happy to host any number of these to address any topics that are on your mind. So feel free to reach out with suggestions or questions. In the meantime, we'll be sending out an email to you all in the next few days with today's recording. And I also want to apologize for the technical issues today, but it looks like we were able to get through them. So I'm hopeful we'll see you all again in our next webinar. And let's keep up our spirits and bigger, better, stronger.
Great.
Love it.
If I may, if I could add one more thing, for those of you that haven't used InstaWork, once you turn the corner, I've had wonderful success with them, and I've been really pleased with their work and the people that they've sent. So I want to thank you guys, Andy and Francis and Samir and the whole InstaWork team for getting behind us.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, sending you virtual hug now. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Look forward to the next one, and thank you to our panelists for all their time and great advice.
Great.
Thank you so much. Good luck, everyone.
Bye-bye. Lilian, I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Bill. Look forward to it.